In this video, we want to take a look on some more flight ID processing, and we will switch also to the backend and add there another endpoint. So now later on, we might set that flight ID here manually so that we not only take it from the parameter. So let's go ahead and create an arrow function here. I will explain to you later why we use an arrow function. Find flight equals to flight ID of type string and null. Now the arrow goes to this dot flight ID equals to flight ID or not passed. And there we go. So this method here, our arrow function, simply also sets the flight ID provided from the parameter here. Now, instead of grabbing, now we go ahead and adjust the subscribe here, so that we go ahead and say p goes to this dot find flight, and now we can simply take that p get, and the rest will get handled by the find flight arrow function itself. Oh, one brace is missing. There we go. Okay, so it's exactly doing the same stuff as before, but now we have that, well, arrow function for it. So we subscribe to the paramap, and then we find the flight, and we submit the parameter of the parameter map flight ID. We submit it here and can potentially be null. And if we have the ID, we assign it to this flight ID, right, with the value from the parameter. And if we don't have it, this is a Boolean operation. We're gonna say, no, not passed. So if we have a flight ID, we assign it. And if we have none, it's not passed. So this is just, as I said, a Boolean operation using that double question mark, right? If we have a value, we do this. And if we don't have a value, we use the right side. Great, let's save it. Now let's switch back into our REST API project. Open up the controller there. Let me close the client app folder, controller, flight controller. Now we take or create a new endpoint, which is called find. So here we have all of the information, right? That's nice. Let's keep it for now. And since it's pretty long, we will write our new endpoint or action right above it. So let's go ahead and do that. Public flight read model find, and it takes the GUID as an ID. So if we want to find a flight, we for sure need any identifier. If we don't have an identifier, which flight should we find, right? Now we can simply go ahead and return something here, or we can go ahead and write it in a pretty cool new syntax. Let's do this. We say this find action goes to flights. Now inside of that controller, we have our search method right here, and we should really make that look a little bit nicer. Let's copy everything here from the new flight array up to the very last element. Let's copy that and then remove it. So search here will now return that list that we have to create. Let's do that, or add array, call it static private. You can also do private static for sure. Flight read model array, which is called flights, and it's new flight rm. The values are exactly the same, which we have just copied. So let's paste them in. Nice. Now he doesn't know random for sure. So let's go ahead and take that random that we have right here, new random, and bring it right above it. We can also set that to static. So static, random, random. Now everything will work again. So we just have that flight array here. Let me just collapse it so that it doesn't take so much space, right? Okay. If you are having struggles here, simply go ahead into the GitHub repository and check what we have done here. Now scroll down. You can see that search now throwing an error for sure. So we now go ahead and simply return here the flights, which is an array, which is an IE-numberable. Great. Okay, so now search is working, and we needed to do that since we want to use that flight information somewhere else too. Now let's create our new endpoint. So this time it's about finding a specific flight by using an ID. This is what we have created. This is the moment we have been waiting for, right? So it's again of HTTP GET, but this time we also have a parameter, and this one we just call it ID. we don't need to call it flight ID, right? We can also call it ID. We can specify that later on. Now, public flight RM, right? We want to find a flight, and this is our flight read model. Then we call it find. We have that GUID, which is called ID as a parameter. Let's go ahead. So those two will be bound together, ID and ID, the parameter and the one from the attribute right here. And this one, we can also use the nice syntax here, the new one, but you can for sure simply go ahead and return. But we use the nice arrow syntax here. That one returns. We don't need to specify that lot space. We can also go ahead like this and say flights dot single or default, where flight goes to f.id equals to the ID from the parameter. Now, this is also an expression, or to be more specific, it's link. So this is sort of an iteration through all of the collection, which is flights, and it's checking for each flight, hey, do you match with that condition here? So let's say we have 3 flights. He will go through all of those 3 flights and check if the flight ID of that flight is the ID from the parameter. So if one of those 3 is matching, then the one will get returned, right? So if you have absolutely no clue and you are super overwhelmed with that expressions, go ahead and check out the link tutorial. It's really basic C#. It doesn't take you long to get it, and it will make your life so much easier. Just let me keep that short. Link, or those expressions we are using here, are for finding, filtering and grabbing information, mostly used for enumerables such as list and arrays, for example. So single or default will return us one value depending on that expression right here or statement. Let's save it like this. Also want to mention that only adding the parameter ID here to grab the flight ID is not enough. We need to specify it in the HTTP GET configuration here, so that we say this endpoint is taking a parameter with the name ID. Now we're done here. In the next video we will see all of that in action.